एकम् अक्षरम् हृदि निरन्तरम् भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलम् ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहम् अहम् साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता आनचलनिरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो देहं मृण्मय जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तथ भावशुद्धिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः ॐ भावतः उदो रतिः दृष्टात्मनिष्ठा सो स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः विभाति स्वयं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः विभाति स्वयं Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we are commencing our meditations on the work Vivekachoodamani by Shankara Bhagavad. We are going to rely on Bhagavan's translation of the work. The work itself consists of about 580 odd verses, which has been translated into Tamil as verse form by another writer, another poet. But Bhagavan has translated the whole work with some mixing up of the verses in prose form. And we are going to follow the prose form. The whole work has been touched upon. Some of the people who have commented on Vivekachoodamani, they have extracted 108 verses, 110 verses, like that, from the 580 odd, then focused on those 100 odd verses as the ones that cover the whole work. But Bhagavan's translation covers the whole body of the Acharya's work. We are going to start with the introduction given by Bhagwan later. The translation of Vivekachoodamani happened during Virupaksha Guha days itself. The stay at Virupaksha Guha. At that time itself, the translation has taken place into Tamil. But the introductory article to Sunday Times Madras, I think, must have happened much later. And we are going to rely on that in this particular 1 or 2 sessions to get an introduction to the work. Some of those who introduce Vivekachoodamani or other works that they are going to take up will gradually lead up as to how it is a Shastra and how Shastras are required and all that. But Bhagwan's introduction has that a little bit of why it is required or what it is exactly. And then it covers the whole work in the form of about 10 to 12 paragraphs, short paragraphs, about 3 or 4 pages. That means in this first 1 or 2 sessions, we are going to get the whole overview of the entire work of Vivekachoodamani as covered by Bhagwan in his introductory note. And that gives the beauty of the ability to encapsulate the whole work in such a manner and to bring us to focus on what we are going to see in detail later in this short introduction by Bhagwan. Bhagwan begins by saying that, just as in the introduction to Who Am I, this is not an introduction given to the work by anybody, it is given by Bhagwan, that all beings, all creatures seek to be happy without a trace of sorrow, and there is an intent to free themselves from sorrows, particularly like health issues, illnesses, and other things. And this happiness which they are seeking is actually present in each of them as the very nature. The unalloyed happiness is present in deep sleep where there is no mind. But then they are not aware of this. The ignorance of this innate happiness, which is natural happiness, leads them to seek the iha and para sukham, the happiness in this world and in the world after. This is where Bhagavan forks out into a different route in this work than in the work Who Am I written by him. In the work Who Am I written by him, how he finishes that is by saying that the means to get that happiness, which is one's own nature, as experienced by each of us in deep sleep, where there is no mind, the direct path is to know oneself, is how that ends. But then here, in tune with the expansive nature of the work, and so that we will be able to look into all the contents of the work, Bhagavan opens up the issue of ignorance. That ignorance of this innate happiness, what it manifests as? It manifests as the search for happiness in this world and in the world after death of the body, iha para sukham. Where do we come across this term, iha para sukham? We deviate a little bit from the introductory note that the iha para sukham is the main aim of the first part of the Vedas. The, the Karma Kanda of the Vedas, they point out to what are the actions, what are the yajnas, the homas, the dhyanas. That means the karmas related to the body, the speech, and the mind. All these arranged in a dharmic way. When performed in that dharmic way as prescribed by the first part of Rig, Yajus, Sama, and Atharva Vedas, they all are aimed at these two. What are these two? The Ihasukha and Parasukha. The experience of happiness in this world, having the better facilities, more comfort, and all that, that is where the Karma Kanda of the Vedas lead us. And if one is probably interested in connecting the modern education and all the yajnas we do by sacrificing some of the other areas which we could have spent time in on studies, I am sure we will find a connection between what is said in the Vedas as to how prana has to be controlled, how the desires have to be controlled, how particular way of channelizing effort is to be done, so that the ihasukha, which modern days it is education, it is employment, it is earning money, and it is family life. All these are possible if you can, if you are interested, you can, I am sure, connect whatever is said in the Vedic form there as yajnas. You will definitely find that there is a strong connection in what we are doing as effort to have a better life in this world. But the Shastras also go and teach us about the Parasukha. That is, there are karmas which lead to punya and which lead the prevention of papa, which leads to the quality of life after death. So that is also there in the Karma Kanda or the first part of the Vedas. The second part of the Vedas form the Upanishads. The Upanishads, by their very meaning, is the knowledge of that which is very near to us, that which is not apart from us, the knowledge of the Atman. And what kind of knowledge? The Upa means the Atman, which is the nearest. The Ni indicates the steady knowledge of the Atman. And Shat, it indicates the attainment of Brahma Jnana, that the Atma Jnana is itself Brahma Jnana, or the Shat could indicate the freedom from the miseries of the world, which are the apparent two components of mukti. That is, the Upanishads are not concerned with the Ihapara Sukha, but they are concerned with liberation. The ultimate goal of Vedas are concerned in the Vedanta, the second part of Vedas, which is the Upanishads. And the Upanishads, by the very name, they are a study into the Atma Swarupa. What kind of Atma Jnana? Not the relative Atma Jnana, I am a good person, I know this. No, but that which is unchanging and steady Atma Jnana, which itself is Brahma Jnana. Shad indicates Brahma Jnana or freedom from worldly knowledge, worldly miseries. So we come to the second part of the Vedas, the Shastras. Shastras, of course, mean any scripture which is not only having a goal but also suggests a means to that goal. Any Shastra, the definition of Shastra in tradition is that it is a scripture or a work which works or points out a particular goal and also suggests the means to attain that goal. Now, therefore, all the Vedas form the term or come into the term Shastras. They are all Shastras because all the Vedas, when both the parts are included, they aim at liberation, moksha, and nothing else. And the first part can be considered as the lead on, the support required to come to the moksha. And one can see how are these two connected. Vedas, if this part is separate and those who are doing karma kanda keep on going on in karma kanda, and those who are seeking jnana and liberation alone get liberated, then why at all introduce the karma kanda there? Those who are seeking ihapara sukha according to Bhagavan, because of the ignorance of their uh, inner nature of natural happiness. What is the connection that the Upanishads give? The, the understanding is that the first part, the Karma Kanda, which regulates dharmically the actions of the body, the speech, as well as dhyana, as well as it is said to contain some attitudes like Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Atiti Devo Bhava. For instance, all these are the very way in which the consciousness is channelized so that there is a dharmic way of living in our day-to-day life. What happens when one aims for Iha Parasukha, as mentioned by Bhagavan, through the dharmic means, through righteous means? There are, of course, these two phalas. That is, there is the Iha phala and Paraphala. That is the Sukha in this world and Sukha in the next world. One interesting finding in that is that when the Shastras assure that the phala will be got by the dharmic following of those karmas, what it implies, what is actually given to the seeker, it's very interesting to note that once it guarantees that these are the phalas you will get in this world and the next, what is it actually guaranteeing by that is that you will get the appropriate body, the healthy and the experience capable body to experience those phalas. You will also get the object of experience that alone will give you that phala. Not only that, you will be placed in circumstances which will allow you to enjoy the phala. This is the intention of the Vedas in saying, do this, you will get that. Do this, you will get those phala in the Iha and Para. And what it implies is the interesting part that if you have done the dharmic sadhana, then it has to guarantee these three things. That is, it has to guarantee a body with which you can enjoy the phala properly or experience the phala properly. You have to be guaranteed the object of experience and also the circumstances in which it can be enjoyed properly. And that is the assurance of the Vedas in the first part. But then it assures that there are three phalas of the karma kanda. Not only these two, not only the Iha, Sukha, and Parasukha, but when somebody is following their the karmas, their effort direction through righteous means, through dharmic channels, there is a third phala, is it said in the Vedas. The third phala is that once you have taken the sensitivity to be careful not to just like that get the goal somehow or the other, but to channelize your efforts in the right means, which usually means that you don't hurt others in the process of you drive the vehicle properly with care for not injuring others, observing the traffic lights, and then reach the destination rather than drive helter skelter and somehow or the other reach the destination. That is insensitive way of conducting a work. Whereas if one is following the dharmic mode of doing and enjoying, there is a third phala which is interesting. The third phala is that one starts understanding, one starts being sensitive to the ashashvata nature of the phala. That the phala is ashashvatam. One starts realizing, the second cup of coffee is not giving me the same utility as the first cup. The aged body, as the body ages beyond 50s and 60s, the same amount of uh, the same amount of input is not sufficient to give the same amount of experience. There seems to be different kind of input required to give the same kind of experience. Therefore, we understand that the phala, as we channelize our efforts carefully in the dharmic way, that sensitivity allows us to have the third phala, which is the sensitivity towards the limitation or ashashvata nature of phala. And one can understand that Bhagavan begins with this in the first three shlokas of Upadesha. He assumes that we have done and gone through the karma kanda to understand when he says phalam ashashvatam gati nirodhakam. In the very second verse, Bhagavan says, if you don't understand the rule that karturajnaya prapyate phalam, then kriti mahodada patana karanam phalam ashashvatam gati nirodhakam, it says. And then the Ishwararpitam Nechaya Kritam comes, that once you learn that it is Phalam Ashashvatam, then what is it Shashvata? What is the Shashvata Phala? What is the happiness that will be untainted and that will be ever with me? That kind of inquiry starts, which then comes for one to understand that the very karma that one is doing, the very activity that one is doing, is or could be the phala of some previous karma. That previously I was thinking that this is the karma and something else is the phala I am going to get. But with sensitivity to the ashashvata nature of the phala, one starts looking at what one is doing. And one realizes that what one is doing good itself, and it is the phala of what we have done so far. So the Nechaya Kritam, what to do with that now? We come to Ishwara Arpitam. That the very karma is done as an offering to the Ishwara. That is when the sensitivity really starts. That where Bhagavan says that there are two types of karma. One is Bhoktritva karma and one is Kartritva karma. That means where I am doing the Kartritva karma of speaking, and you are all doing the Bhoktritva karma, let us say, of listening. And we clearly understand that it is the sensitive way to end karma is to come to the Bhoktritva nature, that the listening can be done more detachedly unless one has practiced the detachment while doing the Kartritva karma itself. It is difficult to practice detachment while doing the Kartritva karma. Therefore, we sensitively come to understand that it is attending, it is experiencing and finishing off. So we, at this stage of sensitivity, we don't get into arguments. We don't get into fights. We don't get into despair about things not happening. But then we are attentive to how to experience those karmas and finish them off. Let us say that we get the sensitivity to come to the act of experiencing and finishing. Now we have come to that point where the experiencing and finishing is so natural that the karma is not directly engaged upon. The experiencing and finishing alone is there. Then lot of silence is there, let us say. Are we now free? There are two questions that come up at this stage. One is, can the jiva, which is the I thought, which is the essence of all that it has seen, it has known, and it has done, that is, it is itself the essence of all the karmas, can it ever know that it has finished all the karmas? Now coming to the Jnana Kanda. Can it ever know that it has finished all the karmas? Obviously, the I thought, which is itself the essence of all that we have done, seen, and known, that obviously cannot know that whether it has ended all the karmas. Secondly, there is this Kameshwarji question. About 15 years back, when we were doing Girivalam, I think on a Kartika Deepam day, Kameshwarji had joined, and we had the good fortune of doing Girivalam. The team from Bangalore was there, and we were doing the Girivalam with him. And he asked me this question: Nandakumar, with your self-inquiry practice with Bhagavan's grace, have you ended any of your bad habits? Have you ended any of your bad practices or karmas? And I was like that, I could answer, yes, I have been, I have had the benefit of ending many of the bad habits. Then he posed the Kameshwarji question. The question is, he asked, are you sure that they will not come back again? Are you sure that the karmas you have ended will not come back again? So I became silent because there is no way the ego can answer that. There is no way the I thought can answer that. I was truthfully looking at myself, can I answer this? And the I thought became only still. There was no answer to Kameshwarji. The point is, no jiva can ever answer that. No I thought can ever answer whether the bad practices or the karmas that it has done will not come back again. That is where the Jnana Kanda starts. When you understand that you can never know as a jiva, as an I thought, you can never know whether all your karmas are ended or that what you feel you have finished and done and dusted, whether they will not come back again, you will not know. So the limitation of the karma marga by itself per se, it is not the end of karma marga there, but then that is what opens up the Upanishads for us, which open up the path of liberation as to how to solve this inability of the jiva to know that it has ended karmas, or that what karmas it has really felt it has crossed will not come back again. That is where the Jnana Kanda comes. And Bhagavan says that Adi Shankara, knowing this problem of the individuals and the practice of even Shastric living, they are trapped in the ignorance of seeking happiness outside them through doing and experiencing. Whereas the happiness in reality is their very nature, experienced in deep sleep where there is no mind. But because of ignorance of this, they are trapped in this cycle of seeking iha para sukham. And Bhagavan says in his introduction, we are back to the introduction, that aside that look into the Upanishads and the Vedas is completed. Now, Bhagavan says, out of compassion for those who are stuck in the first part of the Vedas of seeking iha and parasukha, Adi Shankara is the form that Shiva himself deigned to take out of compassion for the seekers of this world. He took the form of Adi Shankara, and first he does commentary on the Prasthanatraya. The Prasthanatraya, now coming back, is the top 10 Upanishads, the 10 Upanishads that are selected, and the Brahma Sutras and Bhagavad Gita, all commentaries have been done by Adi Shankara. But the Upanishadic teachings, what happens to these Upanishads? You will find in Mandukya Upanishad just 12 verses. What is required? Hitting the nail on the head, beginning with those who have practiced for years and years. They are the ones who are addressed right from the beginning. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. There is an Upanishad which starts with the end. Whereas there are other Upanishads like Kato Upanishad which starts with a story. There is most of the Upanishads are dialogues between Sishya and Guru. In this, the Sishya is Nachiketas, a boy who narrates many of his worldly experiences and then how he goes to seek his Guru as Yama, and goes and asks him, and Yama tests him out whether he is a proper Sishya, and then the teachings come through. So the Upanishads are said to be like a forest in which, if you want to gather flowers, you will have to go miles and miles to find each type of flower. Whereas Vivekachoodamani, for instance, is said to be like the garden that one has cultivated in the backyard, where whatever is the selected flowers that are for our Ishta, for our puja, we carefully put fertilizers, put them in order, and know when they are going to come. And we know very easily we are able to take because everything is ordered and proper and fine. And that is what Vivekachoodamani does. And that is what is not available even in the commentaries on Prasthanatraya. What Bhagavan says, the commentaries on Prasthanatraya, which is partly Upanishads, is so abstruse that even a sincere sadhaka, even a sincere seeker, may not be able to make head or tail of the abstruse nature of the commentaries. That he is not able to pick it up only. The moment he looks into the beginning of those things, is put into depression by the degree of difficulty. So that is why, out of great compassion, Bhagavat says that the Acharya has gathered all the teachings of the Upanishads into direct, gradually arranged verses, 580 and odd verses, which Bhagavan calls small treatise. Because he is exposed to Yoga Vasishta and all, which run into thousands and thousands of verses. So he says 580 verses is a small treatise. In the small treatise, he covers this whole ground of condensed Upanishads. So what are we going to get here is that all the major Upanishads, what all has been contained in that. Obviously, we have seen it is about the knowledge of the Atman. And what kind of knowledge of the Atman? The Ni indicates that it is going to be the steadiest form of knowledge of the Atman. And the Shad indicates that it is going to lead into the understanding that the Atma Swarupa is the same as the Brahma Swarupa, or the Atma Swarupa is completely free from all the miseries of all the lokas. The Shad indicates either freedom from all the lokas or abundance in the Brahman. All the Upanishads, the major Upanishads, are now available. Once we meditate on this work, what can you be assured of? What can the seeker be assured of? Bhagavan is saying here indirectly is that one need not now go and seek in the Prasthanatraya for what is to be done to seek liberation. What are the contents of all the Upanishads, of all the Vedas? The second part of all the Vedas are various kinds of Upanishads. Literally like the forest from where we have to seek and select the flowers to be plucked. Whereas the Vivekachoodamani, which we are going to study with Bhagavan's grace, is the rearrangement of all that, the very essence of all that, into gradual, ordered arrangement of verses, which will ensure that the seeker has the goal as well as the sadhana to reach the goal right in front of us from Bhagavad Padar, Adi Shankara himself, and now translated by Bhagavan with the blessings of Bhagavan as Ramaneshwara. We are going to investigate into this work, meditate on this work called Vivekachoodamani. Vivekam is itself, there are said to be three meanings for Vivekam. One is Vivechana. Vivechana is the ability to discriminate. Ability to discriminate what? Discriminate not between water and milk, but discriminate between Satya and Asatya. What is true, what is not true, as well as the self and non-self. What amounts to the self and what is non-self. That is Vivechana, the ability to discriminate. Viveka also refers to the Shakti, the tapasvic Shakti of actually discriminating. That means when the thought arises, to actually let it go and hold the self. You should not only be able to discriminate between the I and the non-I, the self and the other thought, but also have that strength to let the other thought go and hold the I. This is also called Viveka. That means Viveka has one meaning, the ability to know what is the other thought and what is the I thought. It is also the strength with which we are going to practice what Bhagavan has taught us. And third meaning, it also indicates the jnana, that is the reality. That is our natural happiness, into which one is going to merge along with the worlds one is seeing. That jnana, the self-realization, is also called as Viveka. So the Vivekachoodamani, the meaning, the Viveka has three sub-points. One is Vivechana, the ability to discriminate between Satya, Asatya, self and non-self. The strength to actually practice that Viveka, as well as when the ignorance is dropped, how the self luminously shines, that is also called as Viveka. And what is this Chudamani? The Chandra Chuda is the one who is wearing the Chandran on his head. So Chudamani is a jewel that is placed on the uh, crest, on the head. In those days, they must have had the practice because they had those crowns. They had those practice of having the best of the jewels on the head. Probably it has gone out of practice these days, but we can understand how the Acharya is saying that Viveka is actually the Chudamani. The Viveka is the jewel that one should have in the crest, in the head. Because there is this Sanskrit shloka, and which can be easily understood, that what is the jewel for the hand? What is the jewel for the hand? It is the ability to do dhana. What is the jewel for the neck? The jewel for the neck is the ability to speak the truth. And the jewel for the head is Vivekachudamani, is the Viveka, which itself, the Vivechana, the Shakti of Viveka and the Jnana, that is the actual Chudamani one should wear, is the indication of this work. And Bhagavan says, not satisfied with this contribution of the Prasthanatraya commentaries, the Acharya, out of great compassion for us, he has gone and he has written the essence of all the Upanishads into Vivekachudamani for our easy assimilation. Now, how the work begins and how Bhagavan takes us through the whole of the work. The work begins with how rare it is to get a human birth. How rare it is to get a human birth, and that once you have attained it, and you have the interest to get moksha, and you have the uh, the sangha of the satsanga of the one who has realized, like Bhagavan and his teachings, when they are with us. Now all the three are with us. That we have, those who are in the satsang are all having the human birth, are all having the understanding of the Vedas, to know that it is in the second part, that is in the Upanishads and the practice of Atma-vicharam, that the real goal of all Vedas lies. So there is mumukshutva, and this satsang itself indicates that we are meditating on the teachings of Bhagavan and the teachings of Acharya. So there is their blessings. The Guru Kripa is there. Without the Guru Kripa, you can't meditate on their works. When we meditate on the words of Bhagavan, Bhagavan is literally there in the Sukshma Sharira, in each of the disciples' minds. When we sit down with Shraddha and take up Bhagavan's words for study, that indicates that the grace is there. That is where when Kapali Shastri would ask Bhagavan that with self-inquiry, can I by myself reach the self? Bhagavan would say that you are doing self-inquiry is itself indication that the Bhagavad Kripa is there, that the grace of the Guru is there. So the grace of the Guru is the grace of Guru, grace of Ishvara is what gives you the Manushyatva and Mumukshutva and the Sangha of the great ones. They are as per the grace of God. But then once they are there, if you don't make effort, then the Acharya condemns it in the toughest of terms. Much of that we will as we go into the work. But then he says one has to make from there on. Once you have these three, that's all. Then from there on, that your ability to practice itself is the indication of grace. All these itself are the rarest of rare things that you have taken human birth itself. You should not ask for anything more. Nothing more should be asked, because this is the rarest of rare gifts of all the possible permutation combinations we could have had between living and non-living beings. We have had a human birth. Not only that, we have mumukshutva. And not only that, the rarest of rare gifts, that the teachings of Bhagavans has come before us and we are able to make sense of it. These three are the best thing that could have happened out of God's grace. These are the indication that God's grace is totally after you. Now the only thing to do is to do sadhana. And what is the sadhana according to the work? The sadhana is that the self-inquiry and the jnana marga is the only way in which one can come out of the bondage, come out of ignorance into liberation. And here the acharya is going to put all the load on the sadhaka, that unless you take the medicine, the disease is not going to go. Unless you eat the food, the hunger is not going to go. But what you have to understand is, as you do the self-inquiry, the you is going to undergo transformation. It is not as though that Nandakumar is aiming for some personal, that Nandakumar, this fellow alone should somehow liberate himself. I alone should be free of misery. There is no way in which any jiva can come out of misery. To come out of misery, one should have an understanding of the whole area, the whole area of the bondage and liberation. One has to understand. And what is common medicine for everybody? The medicine is available for everyone, that one has to take personally. Then only the fever goes away. So that is the portion. Some portion of the verses are going to tell about how one has to personally take the medicine. Then once you know this, once you know about the teachings, what one has to do according to the Vivekachoodamani, one has to approach a guru, and through the guru, one has to seek the Upadesha regarding Shravana. The Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana are going to be there. Now the qualities of the guru are delineated in verses. Some of the verses are going to talk about the qualities of the guru, and definitely the qualities of the disciple are going to be talked about. And what is the Shravana Manana Nididhyasana? The Shravana Manana Nididhyasana is that the three bodies that we are having are all unreal, and that the dropping of the three bodies takes you to the self of all, and abiding as the self of all is itself being the Brahman. To listen to this Guru Mukena is Shravana. According to the verses of the work, the part that is going to be regarding Shravana will be that the Guru is going to tell you. What is going to tell you is going to tell you that the Jnana Marga, the beauty of it is that one is not going to cross world by taking vehicles and traveling thousands of kilometers over days. One has to free the consciousness from the three shariras. The three shariras are the gross, subtle, and causal. The sadhana is not concerning with what the others are doing, what objects you are going to get. None of that. The sadhana is going to be with self-inquiry. One has to free the consciousness from these three shariras. That will lead you to self-abidance. That is not different from Brahmajnana. To listen to this from the Acharya, this is Shravana. What is Manana? Manana is deep contemplation of this. And surprisingly, we are going to get Manana in Vivekachoodamani, which is matching with the Manana that Bhagavan gives. That the self-inquiry, the tracing of the I thought, the tracing of the self, the Anveshana, the seeking of what is the truth of the I, is suggested by the Acharya as the Manana here, the deep contemplation. But then as you try to contemplate, that is when the whole problem is going to start, because the Acharya says that is when all the vasanas driven by the three gunas, the three types of vasanas, the sattva, rajas, and tamas, all those vasanas are going to rise up once you start doing self-inquiry. That is where with that we will stop the introduction. We will continue with the introduction and try to finish it in our next Wednesday session. What we have seen so far is that Bhagavan, through his introduction, he is giving us an overview of the whole work. Only Bhagavan can do that for us in matter of few paragraphs. He is going to cover the whole work. And by the good fortune of having meditated on his Ulladanarpadu, Anubandham, Sri Dakshinamurti Stotram, Atma Bodha, it is not that we will not make sense out of this condensation. We will be able to make complete sense of what Bhagavan is saying in these few paragraphs. We'll be able to digest what we are going to see and how the sadhana is put before us and why the Acharya has taken up this work, because he finds that his own Prasthanatraya commentary is not usable by many of the seekers by the very abstruse nature of the contents, and therefore he condenses all the top Upanishads, all the important Upanishads, which are mainly study of the Atmaswarupa, into Vivekachoodamani. And so far, what we have seen as the content of Vivekachoodamani, it is aimed at mukti. It is aimed at no other aim than the second part of the Vedas, which is the Vedanta. All the Vedantas, they aim for mukti. That is the aim of Vivekachoodamani also. What is the means? The means is vicharana. The self-inquiry is the means which is going to be suggested. What are the steps that are suggested? That we should have a good acharya, and from the acharya we should first learn about how the three shariras are the only things that are needed to be detached from by the consciousness. This, the Shariratrayam transcending or finding what is immanent in the three Sharirams, is itself going to help us transcend the three worlds of waking, dream, and deep sleep. The tough journey of crossing the muppad of waking, dream, and deep sleep is going to be facilitated by this sadhana of dropping the Shariratraya as not self, and the process of the manana. The Shravana is to listen to this teaching from the Guru. The Manana is the practice of Atma Vicharam. And that is where we are closing today. We will take it up. How Bhagavan takes us through the whole of the work. We will take up the introduction again in our next session. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Let us sit in Atma Vicharam, the practice of self-inquiry, till 8 o'clock. Then we can listen to Akka, who will be able to give us insights into this work. Ujjwalji, you can set the time for it.
नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, everyone.
Prostrations. Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we have commenced the meditations with Nandakumar ji on the very valuable, the great treasure, the text Vivekachoodamani, of which Bhagavan has done a prose translation, a brief prose translation. Today we were blessed to hear the background of the translation and the purport of the Vivekachoodamani itself. The purport of the Vivekachoodamani, the purpose of the Vivekachoodamani, with the three meanings that were given to us. The first thing, the introduction to the Vivekachoodamani, wherein Bhagavan says that in great compassion, Bhagavad Pada has given us this essence of the Vedas and the Upanishads. It takes my mind to one of my favorite songs of Muruganar Swami, where he says, Vedagama Jnana Vennai Unava Udari Yanai Uvandu Uttinane. He says, Bhagavan, what has he done? He has churned the Vedas and the Agamas and distilled the knowledge in the Vedas and the Agamas like the clarified butter which comes upon churning the buttermilk. The buttermilk is churned, the butter comes out and it floats on the top of the whey. That is, it separates itself from the whey, as it's called, WHEY, whey, I think. So it separates itself from the watery buttermilk and it comes out as the clarified butter. It just floats on the surface. And Muruganar Swami says, this is what Bhagavan has done for us. And Bhagavan here, in his translation, he is saying, this is what Acharya Shankara has done for us. And what has Bhagavan done further? Acharya Shankara has condensed the essence of the Upanishads, which bring us close to the self and make us abide in the self. Such Upanishads, the Sara of such Upanishads has been brought out in Vivekachoodamani, and Bhagavan has further condensed the Vivekachoodamani, as very sweet Nandakumar ji says. He calls it a small text because of his familiarity with the entire scriptures, everything being contained within him. So he says this is already a small text. And in that small text, Bhagavan has further condensed it in his prose translation in Tamil and given us the absolute essence. Not only giving us the essence, Muruganar Swami says he is feeding us with the essence, like a mother feeds an infant to the mouth with great love, ensuring that the infant takes the food, ensuring in every loving way. So in that way, Bhagavan has given us the translation and the essence of the translation of the essence of Vivekachoodamani. And Then we were told also by Nandakumar ji of the three meanings of Viveka, which is why we need this manana, we need this Shravana first. First is the Shravana, which gives us the Viveka. The Shravana of this work gives us a intellectual understanding of what needs to be held on to and what needs to be discarded. It gives us, it reaffirms our eagerness in this quest. Because every time we hear the truth, the power of the truth strengthens our faith in seeking out the truth, our faith in the fact that this alone is important. Such Shravana strengthens our faith. But Bhagavan says, unless there is experience, the faith can be shaken. There is always a possibility that faith may be shaken unless faith is supported by experience, by anubhava. So, Viveka as Shravana, understanding what is important and what is not, what is the truth and what is not, what needs to be sought and what should be spurned. Viveka as self-inquiry. Viveka as the actual experience through self-inquiry, which automatically results by the force of the Shravana. And Viveka as the Atmanubhava. All the three Bhagavan is opening out for us through this sacred work which Shankara has given to the world in great compassion and the equal compassion. Bhagavan understands that even that we do not have the time to delve into. So he has made it even more the essence of the essence. Bhagavan is giving us the essence of the essence over here with great love. And that great grace, that great love of Bhagavad Pada, that great love of Bhagavan, who in the Atma Bodha says he is the same force as Bhagavad Pada, the great love, Muruganar Swami says, and others also say, will not rest. That love will not rest until it sees to the fruition of what is being told, what is being taught. The power of the Guru Vakya will take us back to the essence of the Guru Vakya. Such is its extraordinary energy and love. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ram.
Namo Ramana Kal. Namo Ramana to all.